Hello everyone, this is Dr. Jawad. What I'm going to talk about today in today's video is a common condition I see a lot of, and that is vitamin B12 deficiency. Now before I go into that, I want to explain how vitamin B12 is absorbed in the system. Now vitamin B12 is otherwise known as cobalamin, and the great thing about vitamin B12, it's water soluble. Basically what that means is that if we take, our body's only going to utilize what it needs, and then we'll excrete out in the urine or the fecal matter what we don't need. So it's very, very hard to be vitamin B12 excessive. So how do we get vitamin B12 into the system? So when we take in our foods for our diet, okay, we take in vitamin B12 in different foods, and we absorb it, and our salivary glands produce what's called haptocorrin. Now the purpose of haptocorrin, that binds to the vitamin B12 basically in our mouth still. And as it travels down the esophagus, the parietal cells in our stomach produce two types of chemicals, one hydrochloric acid and the other intrinsic factor. Now the purpose of the haptocorrin binding to the vitamin B12 is to protect the acid from acid degradation in our stomach, because hydrochloric acid is pretty acidic. And so if we didn't produce enough haptocorrin, we wouldn't absorb the vitamin B12. So this is one part of our vitamin deficiency if you have a bad gut. So the haptocorrin binds to the vitamin B12 to make a complex in the stomach. Now once it passes through the stomach, it goes to the first part of the small intestines called the duodenum. Now as it passes through the duodenum, the haptocorrin gets cleaved off, because the pancreas, which is a phenomenal organ, produces a lot of pancreatic enzymes. One of them is pancreatic proteases. What it does, it helps bind down proteins. So what the pancreatic proteases do, it cleaves off the haptocorrin. So once it gets into the duodenum, now the intrinsic factor binds to the vitamin B12 and it travels throughout the small intestines. Now the small intestines has three parts: one the duodenum, one the jejunum, and the last one is the ileum. So as it travels through the different parts of the small intestines, it gets to the terminal ileum. Now the terminal ileum, that is where the small intestine goes into the large intestines. And what it does, the intrinsic factor cleaves off at the terminal ileum, and this is where actually the B12 gets absorbed into the system. Now again, the B12 gets absorbed into the bloodstream and travels out the bloodstream. So this is where, again, this is the ingestion of B12. Okay, so what about the deficiency? So these are signs and symptoms, and what can you do if you're vitamin B12 deficient? So about 40% of the people are vitamin B deficient and they don't even really know it. Now let me talk about the symptoms. Symptoms, you're looking at fatigue, lack of focus, poor cellular function, because remember, B12 is essential for cellular capabilities. Decreased energy levels, poor memory, and different types of anemia are all linked to vitamin B12 deficiency. Also some autoimmune diseases like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. Chronic fatigue syndrome, it's in the name. You're tired all the time. It's linked to certain thyroid issues. It's linked to hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, which is a autoimmune disease. Also, vitamin B deficiency is linked to the adrenal issues. So this is where you experience adrenal fatigue or just stressed out adrenals. If you have stressed out adrenals or just chronic fatigue, you may very well be vitamin B deficient. Now the benefits of vitamin B12, okay? It's essential in red blood cell formation as well as its function, overall cell function in of itself, brain and nervous system. Now, your brain and nervous system consists of two things: B vitamins and fatty acids. So if you're low in vitamin B12, this is where you're going to have brain and nervous system issues. Now, there's been over 430 studies done to prove that low vitamin B12 is linked to anxiety and also to depression. So if you have these experiences, you may very well have low B12. So the question is, who gets it? How do you get a deficiency in vitamin B12? Very simple: poor digestion. Okay, if you're not absorbing the vitamin B12 in the gut due to either something wrong with the salivary glands or the absorption of your small intestines, you're not absorbing efficient amounts of vitamin B12. So you may have a leaky gut caused by eating excessive amounts of gluten and dairy, okay, which will actually pulverize the small intestines. Remember, it's the intrinsic factor that binds to the B12 that gets pulled through the small intestines to get absorbed in the end portion of the small intestines called the terminal ileum. So it has to go through about 30 feet of tubing before it gets absorbed. So again, if you have a leaky gut due to excessive amounts of gluten, due to excessive amounts of dairy, you may not be absorbing the vitamin B12 as you should. And you have what's called malabsorption syndrome. Also too, who gets it? Now I'm not picking on them, okay? Vegans and vegetarians, strictly because they're not eating enough B12 in their diet due to the fact they're not eating meat products. Meat products are loaded in vitamin B12, so the vegans and vegetarians who are not eating those products are typically low in B12. Also too, people who just have poor diets anyways, this is the standard American diet. The standard American diet says high in the bad fats, and they're not taking a probiotic to help absorb the B12 in their system. So basically, what can you do about it? Okay, very easy. Always first, clean up the diet first. I can't stress enough, clean up your diet first, remove the gluten, remove the dairy, remove the inflammation. Okay, let's clean up the diet first. Then eat vitamin B rich foods. Now again, this is your liver products. Okay, this is wild caught fish. This is beef, grass-fed beef. These items are loaded in B12. Grass-fed, again, the beef and the lamb, loaded in B12. Now, raw dairy products, the raw like organic, not pasteurized, loaded in B12. Okay, so these are your kefir, yogurt, raw cheeses, and milk. I'm not a big proponent of milk, okay, but if you're going to have milk, have the raw milk, okay, the unpasteurized. Also, too, probiotic supplements. If you have malabsorption syndrome due to a leaky gut or due to malabsorption syndrome, okay, probiotics increases increases the absorption of vitamin B12 throughout the system. So this is where I highly recommend taking a good probiotic supplement with your daily regime. Okay, so again, first and foremost, clean the diet first, remove the inflammation, clean up your foods. Again, this is vitamin B12 deficiency. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching and share with a friend. See you next time. Hello, this is Dr. Jawad. Please subscribe to my channel for more up-to-date videos, and thanks for watching.